What's going on, fish keepers? George from South Florida African Cichlids here, and today we're going to be talking about the different types of filters there are, how to maintain them, and when to do so. Stay tuned. So the first type of filter we're going to take a look at is our traditional hang-on back filter. It's probably the number one seller and the most common filter. So let's take a look at it and see how you would do maintenance on one of these. So first of all, it's when you should do the maintenance, and that all depends on what the stocking level of your tank is. So keep in mind, for every tank it is going to be a little different, but let's just say you have a decently stocked tank and you only have this one filter on it, then I would definitely do maintenance every week. Now let's say you have two filters on it. Maybe you should do maintenance for one of the filters one week, then the other filter the other week. Sometimes we get by with highly overstocked tanks because we have so many filters. For example, in my 120 gallon, yes, I might have over 40 fish in there, but I have two hang-on back filters, two canister filters, as well as a sponge filter. And pretty much every week we clean one of those filters, so everything stays nice and clean. So let's get right on with it to cleaning the filter. So again, if you have a heavily stocked tank, once a week. If you have light stock or your tank is cycling, I would do maybe every 2 weeks, take it apart. So most of these filters come with either cartridges, or like the Aqua Clear here, it'll come with a little basket that you could stack media on top of each other. The cartridges, they usually just have some type of filter material, usually like a polyfill, and then inside the cartridge they'll have some carbon or some biomedia to help grow bacteria. And those are kind of tricky because some people might throw them away, after a week or two. But I just recommend, rinsing them in like nice clean tank water, because where else is your beneficial bacteria stored if that's the only thing that you have in your tank? Yes, it could be stored in the gravel, etc. But I assure you that that filter that's dirty, I'm sure it has plenty of beneficial bacteria. So if you do have the type that comes with the filter cartridge, I recommend, every 1 week or every 2 weeks, taking that cartridge out, giving it a good clean, and then just putting it back in the filter. What happens with these cartridges over time is that they will clog and the water will start running over them or through the side, and then that gives you a good idea that you should change them. Which brings me to another thing. It's like why I really don't like those cartridges is because every time you're throwing it away or changing them, you're losing all the beneficial bacteria that was on them. So I much rather prefer the baskets of the Aqua Clear 110 that you see here in the picture. So pretty much the bottom is a thick, coarse sponge. So that sponge catches any of the bigger materials coming up. Then on top of that, you would want a layer of carbon and a layer of ceramic media, which the Aqua Clear already brings some ceramic rings. And to clean these type of filters out, you would pretty much go in there every 1 or 2 weeks the same. You would squeeze the sponge out, you leave everything else in there or in tank water. When you take your filter to the sink, just squeeze out the sponge and you're good to go. Another little tip that I have for you guys is if you have one of these type of Aqua Clear filters, I like to put pinky filter right on top of my sponge, just so that it catches the finer materials that don't get caught up by the sponge, and those finer materials are not then, dirtying your ceramic media or your carbon, which carbon isn't really needed. But just to let you know, just a quick little tip there. And moving on to the next ones, we have canister filters. Canister filters are one of the more efficient ways to filter your water. They can be very strong. It is a pressurized system which can cause leaks sometimes, but it can be a little bit of a pain to break them down and clean them sometimes. And the reason for that is it's not as easy as the hang-on back filter, which is just removing a plug and going. No, the canister filters, they usually have a a shut-off valve that you have to close on the hoses. Then you have to disconnect the hoses from your tank, and then carry your whole canister to your sink or your bathtub, or you just put your media in a bucket and then take it over there. So canister filters, I would recommend cleaning every 2 weeks to a month. Again, it depends on your stock. Sometimes you could go 2 or 3 months without cleaning them and they're not extremely dirty. It also depends on the media that you have inside. If you have some really fine polyfill fiber, that can clog up quick, and it could greatly reduce the output that, or the flow that the filter is actually making. So for cleaning one of these, you pretty much want to open it up. You want to take all the sponges out. You want to give the sponges a nice squeeze. With the sponges, if you have enough ceramic media, you could clean the sponges with regular tap water. You don't have to do anything fancy for them. Um, and then again, leave your ceramic media in tank water all the time. Replace your carbon every 2 weeks if you're running any carbon. I like to run Purigen myself, and then I have to recharge that maybe once a month. Um, but yeah, it's very straightforward and simple. It's just with the canister, it could go longer without maintenance. But when you do have to do the maintenance, it could be a little bit of a pain for most people, just because the weight, the size of these things. But yeah, canister filters, it's a great filter. I have various canisters, and on the screen you'll see the Fluval FX6, which is a great example of one. So let's move right along to sumps. Sumps are, in my opinion, the best way that you could filter an aquarium. Not only because it adds extra water volume to your tank system, but also because it's an external filter and it's the easiest to do maintenance on. So usually most people that have sumps, all they have to do is change whatever polyfill they're using, and that's it. You're good to go. As you could see in the picture, there's an arrow coming in, so the water would go in through there. Usually tanks that use sumps are either drilled or they use some type of overflow box. So the water comes in from your tank here. When it comes in, it usually goes through what's called a filter sock. If not, it goes through a lot of polyfill filter material, and then it goes through a middle chamber, which the middle chamber usually has a lot of ceramic rings or pot scrubbies, whatever. And then in the out chamber is where your pump sits. So the sump is the easiest to clean because usually all you have to do is change whatever filter material you're using right below, right when the water comes in. And you would usually do that maybe every once a week. Again, it depends on your stocking and how heavy you're feeding. There's a lot of variables, but I'm just trying to, explain to you how you do the maintenance on these. You don't really have to go crazy cleaning out your ceramic media, although I would recommend it every once in a while, but definitely not every month or every couple months or nothing like that. And sometimes with these sump systems, once a year or so, you want to take everything out and make sure you clean it out real good, the bottom, etc. Another cool thing about sumps is that you could put a light on one of these, and you could have a refugium in there too, which means that you have live plants removing nitrates, and the plants could be hidden in your sump if you like something like that. Um, if your fish, sometimes your fish eat it. For example, African cichlids, you shouldn't have plants in your tank, but you could have them in your sump and they'll still help with denitrification. So sump, again, my favorite out of all the filter types, except sponges. Sponges are a little bit harder to clean, but they get the job done well. And let's move on to sponge filters. Last but not least, we have the ever so popular sponge filter. This is one of my favorite filters for sure. It's one of the simplest ways to run an aquarium, and it's very, pretty easy to clean. I actually did an in-depth video of how I do this, and I'm gonna leave a link to it in the description as well as the end of the video. But pretty much with your sponge, All you have to do is, once you see that it's turning brown or that it has a lot of buildup on the outside, you want to go ahead and disconnect it, get it out of the water, take it to your sink, or just put it in a bucket with tank water, and you want to squeeze the heck out of it. Squeeze it till your water turns brown, then dump that water out, get fresh tank water, squeeze it again. The reason you use tank water is because the sponge has tons of beneficial bacteria. I have tanks that run on sponges alone. One bad part about that is that if you clean out the sponge the wrong way, let's say you're using tap water and you kill off that bacteria, you're most likely going to cause, a mini cycle in your tank or an ammonia spike, just because you lost all that bacteria that was in your sponge filter. So make sure you're cleaning your sponges right. It's very important, especially if that's the only filtration in your tank. Watch the video that I made. But they're very simple to clean. The way that I do it, I put a bag over them before taking them out of the water, so I don't get any type of extra debris or detritus or anything in my water when I'm removing the sponge, because if you just pull it up out of the water, it loses that pressure, and a lot of the things that are stuck on it, they will actually release. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. I tried to cover the best that I could. It's not an in-depth of anything. It's just kind of more like an overview of the different types of filters, when you should do the maintenance, and how you do the maintenance on them. If you would like a more in-depth review or tutorial on any one of these particular filters, just let me know below. I mean, I don't have a sump right now, but any of the other ones, I would be more than happy to share with you how I do the maintenance on it and shoot a video on them. But yeah, if you did like the video, please give it a big thumbs up and let me know what type of filter is your favorite. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll catch you next time.